Hi everyone, Tracy DW here. The war in Sudan, like the conflicts in Gaza, Ukraine, Yemen and elsewhere, offers painful but valuable lessons for how the international community could promote global peace in the 21st century. Sudan's crisis is not only about one country, it's a microcosm of global problems, failed post-colonial transitions, militarized politics, regional rivalries, and international neglect. So, in this, the fourth and final part of this mini-series, let's look at what key lessons the world can learn from Sudan's conflict and how they can inform global peace-building efforts. There are many, but here are just 10 of them. Number 1. Address root causes, not just the symptoms. The lesson? Peace cannot last if it ignores the underlying structural inequalities that fuel violence. The war between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces didn't erupt overnight. It grew from decades of marginalisation, uneven development and exclusion of peripheral regions like Darfur and the Nuba Mountains. Past peace deals stopped the fighting but didn't change how power and wealth were distributed. Lasting peace requires justice, inclusion and economic equity, not just ceasefires. International mediators should focus on nation building, decentralisation and fair governance, not merely elite power sharing. Number 2. Empower civilian voices, not just armed actors. The lesson? Peace processes dominated by warlords and generals produce fragile outcomes. The 2019 revolution was led by civil society, women's movements and youth networks. But when negotiations began, the military sidelined them. The result was a fragile civilian-military partnership that collapsed in 2021, paving the way for renewed war. Civilian inclusion is essential. Peace must be negotiated with the people, not over them. Donors and mediators should strengthen grassroots peace builders, not just elites with guns. Number 3. Build institutions before elections. The lesson? Democracy requires strong, trusted institutions, not just ballots. Every transition since 1956 collapsed because institutions, the courts, parliament, parties, were weak or co-opted by the military. Without reforming the security sector and decentralising power, elections merely recycle instability. International peacebuilding should prioritise rule of law, civic education and governance reform before rushing to hold elections. Sustainable peace means building accountable states, not just formal democracies. Number 4. Demilitarise politics. The lesson? Militarised politics only perpetuates violence even after peace agreements. The Sudanese armed forces and Rapid Support Forces both saw themselves as political actors, not neutral defenders of the nation. The inability to integrate or disband militias, a failure of the security sector reform process, directly led to war. Peace efforts worldwide must include real disarmament and security reform, not just promises on paper. international peacekeepers and donors must support professional civilian-controlled security forces. Number 5. Economic justice is peace building. The lesson? Poverty and inequality drive conflict as much as ideology or ethnicity. The concentration of wealth in Khartoum and extraction of resources from Darfur, the south, and the east fueled repeated uprisings. The rapid support forces rise through control of gold and trade networks shows how economic inequality can militarize marginalized groups. Peacebuilding must include fair resource sharing, land reform, and inclusive economic growth. Global trade systems should promote local development and not perpetuate extraction from fragile states. Number 6. The cost of neglect. The lesson? Ignoring distant cries until they explode makes peace harder and costlier. The world largely turned away from the 2019 revolution, focusing on other crises. By the time fighting broke out in 2023, diplomacy was fragmented and humanitarian aid underfunded. Early international engagement in mediation, humanitarian access, and preventative diplomacy could stop wars before they escalate. Global peace requires consistent attention, not selective outrage. Number 7. Coordinate global and regional mediation. The lesson? Uncoordinated peace efforts create confusion and competition. Multiple mediators, such as the AU, AGAD, US, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Egypt, pursued overlapping, rival peace tracks. The lack of a unified mediation framework allowed both sides to stall and regroup militarily. Peace processes must be harmonised under regional leadership and supported, not dominated, by global powers. Western powers must respect regional ownership while providing diplomatic and financial support. Number 8. Justice and accountability prevent future violence. The lesson? Impunity breeds repetition. War crimes in Darfur were never fully prosecuted. The same actors involved in them, including rapid support force leaders, are now central to today's atrocities. Peace cannot mean forgiving all crimes. The international community must support transitional justice, truth commissions, and the International Criminal Court prosecutions to break the cycle of violence. Number 9. Decolonize peace building. The lesson? Post-colonial states cannot be stabilized using colonial models. Sudan's crisis stems from colonial-era centralization, racial hierarchies, and extractive economies. External interventions that reproduce those patterns, focusing on elite bargains and military order, fail. Peace building must be locally owned, inclusive, and historically aware. International actors should listen to local knowledge rather than impose one-size-fits-all stability frameworks. And 10. Global peace requires global solidarity. The lesson? Humanitarian crisis anywhere tests humanity everywhere. Over 30 million people now need aid, but global funding covers only a fraction of that. The crisis shows how geopolitical fatigue and selective empathy undermines universal peace values. Global peace depends on consistent moral commitment, not political convenience. The world must rebuild institutions like the UN and African Union that can act decisively for all conflicts, not just those in the global spotlight. Sudan's tragedy serves to remind the world that peace is not merely the absence of war. It is the presence of justice, inclusion, and dignity. As a global community, we must find answers to how global peace building can evolve beyond crisis management to address historical injustice, empower local actors, and build fairer systems of global governance. If you liked this podcast, then stay on this listening platform, click the subscribe button, and check out the previous 3 episodes on Sudan related to this one, starting with Sudan, the Forgotten Remembrance. And don't forget what I call the heart and soul of the Stories to be Told movement. My stories, or poetic narratives, Caribbean Wind, Caribbean Rush, Knights at the Round Table, the Berlin Conference 1884, and Gone with the Wind, Macmillan's Speech for Change. These are all available on the website in paperback, on Amazon in Kindle format, and in ebook format at Apple Books and all other digital platforms. Also, the publication of the latest 4 titles. Now, if you want to find out more, just visit storiestobetold.com and check out the learning platforms for The Journey's End, Giving Back Hong Kong, Bite from the Big Apple, A Story for New York, Hope for Zimbabwe, Arise the Phoenix, and A Story for South Africa. We're marking the start of Season 6 with a special shout out and thank you to Vineet and the entire team at Million Podcasts. We're making an announcement that Stories to be Told, the podcast series, has been recognised as one of the top 10 British Empire podcasts on the web by the Million Podcast panel. We are also being featured in their top 25 history teacher podcasts and top 60 podcasts for students. Just check out the links in the show notes. And if you'd like to sign up to my email list, just visit the website where you can opt in and receive your free samples of my first 4 titles. And finally, remember that you can also send me an audio message on the SpeakPipe link, which is also in the show notes, so don't be a stranger. Feel free to like, follow, and share us on social media when you visit the website. Just click on to whichever social media link you would like to follow us on. And, as always, it is a pleasure and a privilege to share my learning journey with you in this podcast series, and I encourage you to either begin or continue your own. History is a matter of fact or perspective. I'm Tracy DW, and this is a Stories to be Told podcast. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next page.